The London Olympics are less than 2 weeks away. The stakes are high. There will be cutthroat competition, not just among the athletes and pharmacologists, but also among the corporations and brands that use the games to make their mark. It is not often that advertisers can find television audiences of 1 billion people. So opening bids to be a London 2012 sponsor were set at around the $50 million mark. And just stumping up the cash does not automatically guarantee success. Often, the official sponsors find themselves competing with numerous advertising rivals, ambush marketers, who employ guerrilla tactics to crash the branding party that the Olympics have become. The Listening Post's Flo Phillips now on ambush advertising, a competition that can, at times, be less than sporting.
South Africa 2010, the World Cup of football. What they call the beautiful game featured the beauty of guerrilla advertising. The cameras were irresistibly drawn to 36 young women in mini dresses. Orange is the colour of the Dutch brewed Bavaria beer, which had just ambushed the official beer of the World Cup, Budweiser. In 2008, Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt broke the 100 metres world record wearing a pair of Puma shoes. He let the world, and the official Olympic sponsors Adidas, know it. It's not just footwear. Back in the '96 Games, British sprinter Linford Christie wore contact lenses bearing the Puma trademark, a poke in the eye for official sponsor Reebok.
Ambush marketing at the Olympic Games is taken incredibly seriously. Companies who have paid enormous amounts of money to be sponsors of the Olympic Games are perhaps having their territory invaded by companies that haven't paid any money whatsoever.
Each of the major sponsors for London 2012 has a main rival, what could be called a corporate nemesis. For Coke, it's Pepsi. For Adidas, it's Nike. For McDonald's, there's Burger King. The competition between these rivals can be just as intense as the athletes going for gold.
Lloyd's was the first sponsor to sign up to the Games, to sign up to London 2012, and Barclays, as everyone in London knows, sponsors the bikes, which are everywhere in London. It just goes to show you don't have to sponsor the Games, and actually a lot of rivals of Olympic sponsors have found ways to sponsor events or things around the Games, around London, that people will see and will have a huge amount of awareness as well.
Nike Adidas is the real hot ground because Adidas are an official partner of the Olympics. Nike have always gone the sort of unofficial route and associated themselves with athletes. They're doing a lot of work at the moment with the athletes that they sponsor, and a lot of them have been tweeting and working on the internet and promoting Nike.
If we go back to Athens 2004, Twitter didn't exist and Facebook was just an idea in somebody's mind. The Beijing Olympics in 2008, social media is very heavily controlled anyway in Beijing. So really, 2012 London is the first summer social media Olympics. Potentially, Twitter could be used for ambushing. If Twitter can bring down governments in the Arab world, then certainly you can organise an ambush through Twitter.
Except the brand police at major sporting events are a little more organised than certain Arab regimes. Just over a month ago, Denmark's Niklas Bentner tried to ambush the European Football Championships by exposing his underwear and the name of a betting shop. That little stunt led to a fine of €100,000.
Hello everyone.
The London Organising Committee of the Olympic Games, known as LOCOG, are keeping rogue brands well away from the main venues and the live cameras. In some cases, cordoning off a 1 kilometre brand-free buffer zone around the venues.
Behind me is the Olympic Park. It's the primary site associated with the London Games and one of the biggest. The designated clean zone here extends well beyond the park itself into bordering streets and neighbourhoods. Each London 2012 sponsor has spent big money, up to $150 million, all for the privilege of being affiliated with the Games. But all it takes is one clever ambush marketing campaign to capture the attention of the media, steal the corporate limelight, and get the lawyers in.
Ambushing is a relatively new phenomenon. So if we look at Olympic Games in past decades, the legislation hasn't been as sophisticated or as complex as it is now. What we're seeing now in London is a much more sophisticated form of legislation aimed at preventing and mitigating the damage caused by ambush marketing.
The government has implemented some very strict guidelines that are enshrined in law. We're talking about using words that are in common language like gold, silver, bronze, or games, or even the numbers 2012. You can't use a combination of those numbers and letters and words to perhaps bring some association with the Games. And so that's put a lot of small businesses offside with the organisers.
There's a lot of small companies in East London in the Olympic boroughs who have adopted the Olympic name in their business title. One of them is this small cafe called Cafe Olympic. And they were approached saying, you're violating the Olympic legislation, so you can't have this word Olympic in your business name. So what they've done is, instead of paying to rebrand their business and to come up with a new name, they've just painted over the O. So they're now Cafe Olympic. So that's one sort of quirky way of getting around it.
These are sort of media examples which LOCOG want to put out there and people see so that they perhaps back off. But they're really rather soft targets. The big targets will be the big brands who are looking to do some major marketing activity around the Olympics. It's more of a shot across the bows for the major players.
Many of those major players, companies looking for Olympic exposure without spending millions in sponsorship money, have invested in trying to find some creative ways to get around the rules.
Many companies are using the city's iconic status with the sporting association to try and link in with the Olympics but not contravene the rules. So we've had Vodafone with their publicity campaign, we've had On Your Marks campaign by Marks and Spencer, and Subway, of course.
What they've done is to sign endorsement deals with several athletes who will be competing at the Games, and they're using pictures of these athletes, they're using pictures of tracks in an attempt to suggest that in some way they are associated with the Games.
This On Your Marks campaign, which is a fantastic play on, their company name. And one of the images they use with this campaign is a girl wearing M&S heels on a starting block. When you see that ad, you automatically think of the Olympics, especially when you see it across one of their huge stores at Westfield Stratford City, which is right on the border of the Olympic Park. This is a really clever way of making an association with the Olympics without actually violating the rules.
If the Games organisers think that big corporations backed by creative minds are their only ambush threat, they should cast their mind back to Beijing in 2008. Because for athletes, the Olympics are more than a chance to make sporting history. They can be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to establish their personal brands in front of a global audience.
What happened at the opening ceremony of Beijing in 2008, we had arguably the best-known Chinese athlete ever, a guy called Li Ning, who was asked to carry the Olympic torch at the opening ceremony. What the IOC and Adidas didn't think about is that Li Ning is actually the name of his athlete clothing brand too. So you actually had Li Ning, the athlete clothing brand, the apparel brand, running around the perimeter of an Adidas-sponsored event. And so arguably this was very subtle, but possibly one of the most audacious ambushes ever.
Until the next one, which could be in London. Let the Games begin.